Hi, I'm Sky from Sunny Girl Cakes, and today I'm going to teach you how to cover a board with fondant and stack a two-tier cake. To cover your baseboard, you'll need a board bigger than your bottom tier of your cake. Today I'm going to use a 12-inch cake board, and my base tier is an 8-inch cake. I'll need icing to cover that, some water to brush on the board first, pizza cutter, some corn flour, and then to attach my cake and stack my cake, I'll need some royal icing, some straws, and a pallet knife. Let's get started. Firstly, I'm going to brush my board with some water, and this is to make the fondant stick to the board. Now I'm going to get my icing. I'm going to dust the bench with some corn flour. Give my icing a little bit of a knead to soften. And roll out. So what I'm doing now is turning the icing and rolling so that I can get an even roll out. If at any time it starts to stick to the bench, you can just lift it up and add a little bit more corn flour. Once your icing's rolled out to about that thick, what I always do is just check that I've rolled out enough icing. So I just hold my board over and I can see that it's bigger than my board, and so that will fit perfectly. So now I'm going to lift the icing over my rolling pin, push the board into its place. That way I'm not moving the icing around too much, and then just drape it straight back over. You'll also need your smoother just to run over the icing and make sure that there's no air bubbles. Once you've done that, then I'm just going to use my pizza cutter to cut the excess off. Once I've run around with the pizza cutter, I pick it up and I run around with my hands just to get any of those little excess bits of fondant off and make sure it's all beautiful and smooth. Now I think covering your board is extremely important to the finish of a beautiful cake. If you're going to put a beautiful two-tiered wedding cake on a silver board, you're not getting a complete perfect look. Simple as that. So what I would recommend you do now is leave that board to dry, because if we were going to try and put our cake onto that board, we would put finger marks into it and that would look disappointing at the finish. I'll just rub those out. So I'm going to put this one aside, and this one I did yesterday is already set, so it's hard. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to stack our cake onto the board. So again, using my turntable, pop my baseboard onto my turntable, and I'm ready to put my bottom tier on. I've got some royal icing that I prepared earlier, and I'm just going to put a little bit on the bottom of the board, and this is going to secure the base tier to the board. Okay, I'll bring over my cake. The cakes I'm using today are an 8-inch base and a 6-inch top tier. So we're going to lift the 8-inch base off the board. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to get your palette knife underneath. Once you've got it underneath, I'm going to make sure that I take out that paper towel that I used to stop it from slipping around and lift it onto where I want to secure it on the board, dropping the end down first and then letting the other side down with the palette knife. Trying my best to get it into the centre of the board and then slowly dragging the palette knife out from underneath. If you can get it into the centre of the board straight up, then that's great because you don't have to move it around and you won't be left with any chocolate marks or anything on your board. So now what I'm going to do is put in the supports for the cake. So what I'm using for the supports today are straws. I use these all the time. I forgot I need some scissors. In a cake of this size, an 8-inch base and a 6-inch top tier, I'm going to put in 4 straws or 4 supports. I'm going to start with one in the middle. And then I'm going to do about 3 on the outside. Obviously, the bigger and heavier the cake, then the more of those you'd probably put in. You don't want to go overboard and have your cake split up, but that will work for this size. So now I'm going to cut them. The way I do this is I basically just pinch where they meet the icing and then lift it up and cut it. I'll go back around and make sure these are right after I've done it. So I can see that's probably a little bit too high. So I pinch, I cut, I pinch, I cut, pinch. So what you're wanting them to do is you're wanting them to match up pretty much perfect with where your fondant finishes. So this one's a little bit high, but this one's probably perfect. You can actually feel that by running over with your smoother. You can see that one's perfect, but that one's bumping into the smoother over here. So what I'll do is I'll just pick this one up and make it a little bit shorter. And again on this one here. Okay, so I do use my smoother to make sure that I've got this right. So I can still feel that that middle one is too high because when I'm running it over, it's bouncing around. So I'm just going to grab that with my scissors again and just take a little bit off. Okay, so that to me feels pretty good. The next thing we're going to do is bring over our top tier. And I'm going to add some royal icing to the middle here. When you're putting in those supports, it is a good idea to have a spare 6-inch board just to make sure that you're not going outside of the cake line. Because I'm used to doing it all the time, I didn't think to do this, but it is a nice idea just to pop your cake board there and see where the cake's going to finish. That way you know you're not outside of the line of the cake. The reason I'm putting the straws underneath is so that the top cake doesn't squash down the bottom cake. So I've got a little bit of royal icing on here. I'm going to take my palette knife again. Now I need to be extremely careful because we've got gold leaf on this cake, so we don't want to touch it. And if we touch it, we'll put a hole in the gold leaf. So I've just put my knife underneath the cake, and again I'm getting rid of the paper towel that I used to secure it there earlier, putting my hand underneath and wobbling around a little bit, leaning it onto the cake, and I can kind of maneuver where I want to put it with my palette knife, and then I can let go of it when I'm pretty happy that it's in the right space. So if you've done everything right, you should have a level cake. And that looks pretty good to me. So that's how you stack a 2-tier cake.
In my next video, I'm going to teach you how to apply ruffles to a fondant finished cake. For photos of my beautiful designs, please check me out on Instagram at Sunnygirl Cakes and also on Facebook.